seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, as if you've not heard enough of me. I'm back. I feel like I've been talking forever. We started live tonight on the Boise Bus at 7:30. We did the first ever Boise Bus fan cam, #fancam, and that was great fun. Celtic get a 2-0 win, though, more importantly. And now we've got the Monday Club meets post-match pish. So, without further ado, a big hello to Jonathan Boyce. How are you, big man?
Not too bad at all. It's a late night session on the bus tonight. It's the last calls, last bus of the evening, but we've made it on board. And we're thankfully going to be celebrating a good result in the end and a pretty decent performance, particularly first half.
It was, mate. It was. It was very exciting in the first half. It was great to see a couple of the new boys getting, obviously, a debut right from the beginning. Something I've thrown at Celtic, Jonathan, over probably the past decade is we quite often when we sign players seem reluctant to put them in, or they always seem to take forever to get up to match fitness or to get up to speed, and there's all these delays, and they never quite have that impact. Whereas I was just delighted to see Maeda's name on the team sheet tonight. I was delighted to see Atati's name in the team sheet tonight, and one gets a goal in his debut, one gets man of the match on his debut. They didn't disappoint us, did they?
No, absolutely not. We had a lot of optimism last Monday on the Monday Club about these players coming in, along with a bit of false optimism elsewhere too. But honestly, the performances, you couldn't expect anything more from the two Japanese boys that started the game. Hatati was excellent, particularly in that first half. Just completely owned the midfield. And then obviously you always like to see a striker on their debut get a goal, settles them in nicely. I thought even outside of his goal, Maeda looked very lively. Again, was pressing a lot, causing a lot of mistakes from Hibs in that first half. You can tell he's already bought into the way that Ange plays football, and that's going to be key, I think, going into the second part of the season as well. So all in all, there's not really a lot of negatives tonight. It's mainly all positives.
No, I agree with that as well. I think it was a very positive night. There was a wave of optimism, Jonathan. I spoke about this before kickoff. There was a wave of optimism all over social media when you were looking at what Celtic fans were feeling about the game. And I think the fact that the winter break being brought forward was vindicated decision. It was the right decision because it meant it did actually, in essence, allow fans to come back, and they only have missed one match now, as opposed, over the winter period, as opposed to the 3. But I also felt with the new signings, we just couldn't wait to see them. And I think the fact that we were on a good run before the winter break, I just think all of that combined, the 3 weeks felt like 3 months almost without the football, and everyone was on such a high tonight that there was only going to be one winner. We did that, and it looked, if we're honest, like it was going to be a more convincing scoreline at the full time than what it ended up being. But I think we do need to focus on, firstly, the two recruits. I know Ideguchi came on second half. Celtic weren't quite at the races as much as they had been in the first half when he came on by then. So we reserve judgment on Ideguchi. What did you make of the contributions? Obviously, it's obvious with Maeda, he's a guy full of confidence, right? Now, the reason I say that is because, albeit the finish is never going to make it in goal of the season contender, not even goal of the month, but what it did show, Jonathan, was he took it first time. Man with confidence, mate. I always remember Giacomakis did that when he got his first start. Similar sort of angle the cross came at, but it was like waist height. He just slotted it home in the volley. Both of them, ironically, top scorers in their respective leagues the previous season. And we're getting guys like that joining us that are full of confidence. Hatate, you can tell he's got a couple of league winners' medals of late as well. Played with absolute confidence and assurance on the ball, lacking in no quality at all. He was on the ball, he was so comfortable. What was your take on the two Japanese boys that started, both Ryo Hatate and, of course, Daisen Maeda?
Yeah, well, as I say, I think they were both extremely impressive, particularly when you consider how little bedding in time they've actually had. And as you rightly say, quite often players, when they're brought in, even when they're brought in just from another Scottish club, don't tend to go immediately straight into the first starting 11. But it just shows the faith Ange has in both of these players that he put them in. And it paid dividends tonight, it really did. I think Maeda, as I say, was so lively, particularly in that first half. You can almost see him and Kyle go up front would just be an absolute nightmare for defenders to play against. Not just with their movement when we're on the ball, but also how much effort they put in off the ball as well. When it comes to Hatate, I think that first half was as good a debut, I think, as I've seen in a long time from a midfielder. Just completely commanded the midfield. Was stringing around passes that he had no right to really pull off in some ways. And you know what I did really like about Hatate as well wasn't just the fact that he made a lot of good balls. He actually, even when he made a poor pass, he was the first one to put that press on to try and get the ball back as well, which again was a really refreshing thing to see. And I think they're gonna go far. You get feels with certain players when they come in. And when they start as strongly as those two did, particularly Hatate, I thought, then you're just looking at it and thinking we could be on to another big player here that could make a big impact in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we always knew that Ange has the inside track on these guys, Jonathan. You know, it wasn't like he was signing these guys blindly and hoping that he could settle. He knew not just about, their abilities on a football pitch, but he knew about their characteristics. He knew about the sort of work rate they'll put in, their attitude, application. These are all sort of really important factors that need to be, combined with, your technical ability, shall we say. And I've seen a couple of comments coming, Maeda was poor outside his goal. I think, from my point of view, I felt that Maeda still showed the characteristics we thought we were going to be getting with him. There was examples of him tracking back. There was examples of him putting a Hibs team that were trying to play football the right way. The right way. There is no right way. It's just win games as far as I'm concerned. But that's a different debate. I felt, though, Hibs, whilst some could argue, invited pressure on them. I thought we executed putting that pressure on them with Maeda as the sort of focal point of that brilliantly. So he brings a lot more than this. A typical number 9 is going to bring. He's very much in the modern era, someone that is going to be pressing from the front. He's your first defender, really, Jonathan. He is your first line of defence. And I thought he actually carried out the dirty tasks. Didn't see much of him on the ball that was maybe making me, oh, wow, that's amazing. But he got a goal, and I thought his work off the ball was outstanding. And I think once he gets more settled in. Hatate, I mean, I don't know how more settled you can get in it. A midfield, bizarre. He looked so comfortable. But I think with Maeda, what we're seeing is an example of how Ange is wanting the team to sort of play. I think you got a performance off him where you've seen the other side to his game, and now it'll be the wee sprinkler on top will be once we start seeing him taking the ball, running at players, going past players, setting up strikers, because I know he likes an assist as well, Maeda. It's not all just about goals. And what we seen tonight was he's going to take shots first time, as soon as it comes in, 3 minutes or whatever many minutes it was, into his Celtic debut. It's awfully exciting times. I was enthused by both of the players. I've got to tell you that, Jonathan. What do you think Hatate brings into the midfield? Obviously, we know the competition for places is heating up in the midfield, right? And we'll talk about the strength and depth a wee bit later. With regards to the midfield, I've kind of tried to separate the midfielders in terms of their positioning and who's going to be competing for those positions. So for me, you've got the Rogic, Turnbull are going for, they've got those, they've had the first half of the season, those attacking midfield sort of positions, ironclad in their name, right? Now we've got Hatate who brings in a different dimension, competing for those jerseys. And hopefully once Hidiguchi gets up to speed, I would like to see Callum McGregor then challenging for those two further forward positions. That's just my take on it, because I know how effective he can be there. Where was I going with this? I don't know. But I just think that right now, the inclusion to see Hatate come straight into the team, and then to see Maeda, who probably started because of Kyogo's injury, but get a goal straight away. It is very exciting that they've had such an impact on their debuts.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would have to agree with that. It's actually hard to see Hatate getting dropped after how such a good debut that was. I did catch a bit of Ange post-match, and he did say a lot of games coming up, etc. You're going to have to rotate the squad, and this is why he's got the squad there now to choose from, which he didn't perhaps have in the first half of the season. But I mean, looking at Hatate, he just looks like he's going to be a player that's going to go far for us. As I say, I've never seen a player that's just came over from Japan, remember, and has just settled in as if he's been living in Glasgow his whole life. He just looks like he was been playing for us for years. How well he just synchronised straight into the team, and he seemed to have a bit of an understanding already with the players. I certainly think, as you rightly say, it definitely helps the fact that he's bought into Ange's philosophy, which all the rest of the players have done as well. And Ange does seem to be the glue that holds all of this together. And I think that was why when these players were announced as signings, we were so excited about it. Whereas beforehand, as we said last week, you probably wouldn't have looked at this and thought signing players from the J League, it might have been a cheap option. But Hatate just looks an outstanding prospect, and it's very hard to see him getting dropped as it stands at the moment, particularly in the league games, where I think a key thing about him is he's always looking to pass forward, even though he's playing that bit deeper. Whereas sometimes I feel, particularly in the first half of the season, we were kind of always playing it sideways or backwards, and that probably contributed to a few of the negative results we had in that first half, particularly games like Livingston at home, St Mirren away. Whereas if we had a player like him, it might well have been different, because he's willing to be brave and try and play those passes, and he knows even if they don't come off, he's going to go get that ball back. And that's just why it's such an exciting signing for me, and that he's definitely was the more impressive, I think, of the two for me this evening. But as I say, all signs are looking good for the remainder of the season with him.
Ross Muir of the Endless Celtics came in and saying Hatate was outstanding tonight. He's going the right way about getting a Valentine's card for me. He was. I mean, it was one of those displays as well. And I'm just trying to go through. There's so many comments coming in. Thanks to each and everyone who's watching. Remember to hit subscribe, wherever the button is, man. I've tried to say it a wee bit more tonight, because I've realised the last 3 weeks I've said absolutely hee-haw. Kevin Reynolds comes up with an interesting one. To us both, and he's saying, the thoughts of the midfield that started, McCarthy's surely well down the pecking order. I'm not convinced, Kevin, that McCarthy's ever been really up the pecking order in Ange's eyes. I know he spoke highly of him and said, it's more than just what they can do on the pitch that I was looking for in a striker. But you don't give 4-year deals to players. I think that they maybe have expected a wee bit more from McCarthy. I'm not sure what aspect of his game they were looking or hoping for more in. But for me, he is very much down the pecking order. But again, to flip it, what a brilliant option to have with the experience that he's got You know, if we were to be depleted via call-ups, injuries, say the games that have to go ahead, that you've got a guy like James McCarthy with all that experience sitting on the bench. This is the sort of strength that we've been striving for, Ange particularly has been striving for since he started. David Lowe comes in with a good point, and cheers to you, David, for jumping on the Boise bus tonight. Rio is an absolute Rolls Royce tonight. Maeda showing he's another workhorse with 100% given. Can see he's going to give opposition goalkeepers heart attacks. I see what you did there.
Very good, David. Very good.
I think there is, though, a lot of defenders that are going to be nervous watching Maeda and thinking, fucking hell, it was bad enough when, you know, with Kyogo, you know, on my heels every time I got the ball. Do you know what I mean? Coming in from behind. You imagine double trouble with him and Kyogo, Maeda and Kyogo, and you've got to be thinking to yourself, that is going to be a defender's nightmare, particularly if you're going to be stubborn. And I don't want to criticise Maloney and Hibs for playing football the right way, we claiming they shut up shop. So I don't want to do that, but it seemed naive at best, to be honest, that we're still doing that with 5 minutes of the contest to go. I found that really bizarre when I was watching that, and I think it plays into the hands of the setup that Ange's got. When you've got those two doing that, you've got Tom Rogic lasting 90 minutes, albeit he doesn't play with the same intensity as the rest. But hey, you try playing football in slippers. You wouldn't be able to play with the intensity of the rest either. I think, though, Tati comes in and brings another, you know, bag of energy into the midfield. Callum McGregor, always a buzz bomb. He can get about the park, no bother at all. And there's got to be a concern for teams now when they come at Celtic, how they set up. Because you could tell at times, Jonathan, that, you know, the high press tonight did cause Hibs all sorts of problems. And obviously we've identified Maeda seems to be very much in the mould of a striker that is going to give 100%, same with the Tati, but not that. I expect that from Celtic players. What you want, though, is the tracking back, doing the dirty side of the game, everyone rolling their sleeves up and mucking in to what is an essential 5 months now, where we start, at the end of the day, from a deficit in points. There's no getting away from it. That's the truth of the matter. We're 6 points off it. So we need to start at the back. We need every player that's in there working their balls off. Do you feel that we got that from the players? And do you think that's an important aspect now with the additions, Jonathan, that the high press that Andrews was maybe been wanting to play all season is going to be a lot easier to sort of do now that we've got these recruitments in?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's probably identified these players specifically with this way of playing in mind. He's probably felt, looking at what he has in the first half of the season, he just didn't have the players that were able to do this for long enough periods in the game. And I think bringing in these guys, they've obviously brought a bit of fresh air there. And I think, you know, if you're looking at it, you're thinking this team could go quite far with the sort of pressing that they're doing. Defenders hate being pressed. And it's like, you know, guys like Maeda and Kyogo look as if they've got an engine that they could just do that all day and they won't get bored.
Yes.
You know, most strikers would probably give up after maybe doing it about 10, 15 minutes if they weren't getting any joy. Like, oh, sod this, I can't be bored anymore. I'm getting nowhere near this ball. But they'll keep going, and it's a defender's nightmare to play against. I would take your point as well. I think when it came to Hibs, I think they were very naive with their tactics in terms of how they set up tonight. Not that we're complaining one bit whatsoever, but if you're going to be playing out from the back and you've got strikers like ours that are going to now just go and hound them at every opportunity, you've got to be a good ball playing centre half to do that. And how many of them really are there in Scotland?
Totally, Jonathan. I get that, and I just think that Ange has had to be patient in what he's wanted to do with this team. He's had to sort of take the rough at the beginning. Doubters like me, I admit it. You know, and when he was getting some poorer results, a lot of it he'd have been seeing like going, no, wait, just fucking hold your horses. As long as I can keep this team in touch with our rivals, wait to see what I can do with a group of my players here. I know I've got some in, but I'm going to get more in January. If I can keep in touch and distance, we've got a fair crack at this. 6 points, though, can't be underestimated. It is still a fair gap. But I just think that the style of football we're playing tonight looked far more like actually what Celtic were trying to implement at times at the start of the season with that intensity and pace, just doing it far more clued up on how to do it now. It's a lot more controlled. before it was really rock and roll football and it was a bit gung-ho and it was quite wild. However, now we're at a situation where Ange just had the 5 months with the players that were already there, and then the guys coming in are used to playing this type of football as well because Angelo have done his homework, and you're seeing that merging together. Let's be honest, you're still looking at Julian Kyogo not even in the squad yet, you know, and you just feel that the high press and intensity that we showed tonight, Hibs played in our hands a wee bit, don't get me wrong, by trying to play that pass out the back, but Ange just forecast that, and he's lined us up in a manner that when you were watching us closing down, particularly that first half, I felt that the scoreline was gonna keep going from 2-0. You know, I genuinely did. I felt that, you know, 2-0 now, the gloves are off. This is gonna get, you know, a wee bit naughty here. I was surprised it didn't. Now, the thing is with that, Jonathan, was that a missed opportunity, you know, to get more goals tonight? I mean, it was a fantastic start, obviously. Or was the second half display to be expected after 3 weeks off and, you know, just still getting a wee bit ring rusty right now?
Yeah,
What a better term.
we like to be greedy as Celtic fans, and I was with you when it went to 2-0 in the first half, and we were dominating possession. Looked as if we could score with every attack that we actually had in that first period. You are thinking in terms of making a statement, in terms of actually really putting a marker down after this 3 weeks off and saying we've made some signings here, we are ready to go again. Obviously, we know our rivals are playing at Pittodrie tomorrow evening. There's a chance to really turn the screw a little bit psychologically there if you go and bash Hibs for 5 or 6 and make a bit of a statement, and that can have an adverse effect on them the next day. I guess on the flip side, though, you do have to take into consideration that they were coming back after a 3-week absence, so obviously players are probably still going to be taking a little bit of time to get fully up to match speed. You could probably argue as well, perhaps Ange was thinking that even at half-time, at 2-0, Hibs weren't causing us too many problems. They had the one chance they should have scored in the first couple of minutes. But outside of that, it didn't really offer much at all going forward, even though they were wanting to. They were unable to get close. So I think, you know, looking at it from that point of view, I think Ange might have been thinking, maybe we can drop this down a gear or two. We've got a lot of games coming up over the next number of weeks. The last thing he needs is somebody else pulling a hamstring or something silly when he's just about got his full squad back and ready and firing. So I think there was a combination of different things. But for me, yes, I'd have liked to have seen us go for the throat probably a bit more in the second half. And even just looking at these comments, I actually thought Carl Stoffel had a very good game. He was actually playing a set midfield for most of that first half. That's how high the sort of press was from the team. It was unbelievable.
Well, Christine James obviously not realised we've got over 200 on the Boise bus right now. Comments are flying in, so I am trying to keep up with them all. So, hello to you as well. But yes, Carl Starfelt. We can talk about Carl Starfelt. We've spoke, Jonathan, during the winter break about we didn't want Mikey Johnson to become a whipping boy. We didn't want Carl Starfelt to become whipping boys for the sake of needing to have a whipping boy, per se. You know what I mean? I actually think it's very much criticised when you deserve to be criticised. We've said this about the board. Praise when they're due praise. I think that's the fairest way to treat any player at Celtic. You know, if they're shite, tell them they were shite. Now, Starfelt, for me, had one of his better games this season. One wee negative, when he goes into their half needlessly, dives in, doesn't get booked though, no harms came of it, so we don't need to focus on it. Other than that, very assured at the back, Jonathan. And, you know, he deserves praise when he does well, doesn't he?
He does, yeah, and I would say you're right. I think he had a couple of ropey games in the first half of the season. League Cup final he wasn't particularly strong in, and I think sometimes it can be a case that he can be turned into a bit of a whipping boy at times in that first half of the season. But I thought he was very solid, very comfortable today, looked a lot more assured. I think the fact Julian coming back now to full fitness as well is going to push him on even more, because quality players playing alongside more quality players can only improve the overall performance of the squad. So I think Starfelt, I thought it was a really impressive performance from him, probably one of his best yet, I would actually say, in a Celtic jersey. And you know, he's probably the one that, if you were looking at Julian coming back in, you'd probably think it'd be Starfelt that would have to make way to allow that to happen. And I think he knows that as well, and that's probably why he's even adapting, if you like, even more to the sort of way that Ange wants him to play. And he was trying to get on the front foot, and he was really trying to take the game to Hibs at points, which is what you really need from a centre-half at times when you play for a club like Celtic, because the centre-halves need to be able to push out and actually be confident and get into the midfield when they need to, because a lot of teams will just put the boys behind the ball, and Starfelt was pretty comfortable coming up, and I thought it was a really good game from him,
I agree with that. I really do. I mean, Jonathan, I need to tell you something about the old Boise bus tonight, right? We had viewers watching the fan cam live from Japan. We've got another Japanese viewer asking us about Nakamura.
Wow.
Naka was a legend. We had someone in Bulgaria, Liam Kolo. Well, that's where he was last time I asked him. He does tend to be on his travels a lot. We had someone in California. We had someone in Germany. Devon, Derry. Unreal. So amazing and thanks to everyone who is watching.
That's incredible. The bus has gone international.
Going global and all that shite, mate, you know. How do Celtic fans perceive Shinsuke Nakamura? Did you like? We'll talk about that very quickly. We loved him. As I was watching a lot of his free kicks, making up the montage for the outro credits last week, Jonathan, and you forget free kicks are like a penalty to him at times. But yeah, absolutely top drawer. First Japanese player to score in the Champions League. The guy was brilliant, says Kevin Reynolds. Absolutely. Honest mistake. Boise as his best. Oh dear. Jeez. So the big question, says Jay Lee, do we need to sign more players? He's stealing our thunder. Good to have you on the bus, Jay Lee.
That's a good question, Jay. It's one of those ones you're looking at it and you're thinking, I'm not sure they will do any further business. Personally, I know we were talking also about some goalkeeper potentially being signed a couple of weeks ago, but Scott Bain's just been handed a 4 or 5 year deal, I believe, today. So that will rule out any more moves for a goalkeeper. I would suspect in this window at least. Do I really think they'll probably sign anyone else? I think Ange might be quite comfortable to run with what he has. I think if he's getting his option, he'd rather just get Carter Vickers or Jota signed up on a permanent in this window now. Obviously losing out McCree last week that we were all getting so excited about, and then it never ended up happening. But I think unless a player becomes available, I'm not entirely sure he will look for anybody else. I'm not entirely sure we need anyone else. Because you look at the bench tonight, and there was a lot of quality on that bench this evening, which has been lacking so far for the most part. But do you share that sort of opinion? Do you think we need to sign anybody else? Or is there any positions you're concerned about if we were to take an injury that wouldn't be able to cope, perhaps outside of goalkeeper?
Well, the goalkeeper thing, I mean, I've said a few times on the Boise Bus pods that we've done that, you know, I've been a wee bit sort of concerned if our fallback option Scott Bain. However, who am I to question Celtic's judgment? At the end of the day, or Angie's judgment, I should say. I judge a lot of Celtic's judgments. But certainly Angie's, we've just given Scott Bain a new 2-year deal. So that seems to be nipped in the bud, that one. So any pining I had for maybe a stronger backup goalkeeper seems to be pissing the wind a wee bit. That looks like that's done and dusted with the new deal for Scott Bain. Which is absolutely fair enough. That's fine. If they're seeing enough in training, that's fine. It doesn't fill me with confidence. Personal opinion. That's what it's all about. Also, though, if I was Ange, I would be monitoring what he's seen in training since Chris Julian came back, and then sort of assessing when realistically can I be looking to have this guy in and around the first team. How many months? How many weeks could it still be down the line? How's he showing up in training? Is he a bit timid? Is he maybe a wee bit sketchy still because of the injury lurking in his mind? Where is he mentally? Stuff like that. You need to sort of weigh all that up. And I think on that basis, I'd be looking maybe if he was to get a fantastic opportunity to bring in another defender, maybe he would look there. Other than that, I think he must be pretty relaxed about his situation. King Size Homer comes in, and this is one that's I didn't want to get into. I was bitching about Greg Taylor tonight because I actually thought a couple of the passes he made, in particular going forward, there was one that Hattie nearly caught on the swivel in their box, and there was a brilliant ball that he played for the penalty. It was Greg Taylor, I'm sure. I felt he had one of his best games in a Celtic jersey that I've seen. Is he the answer long term at left back? Again, probably not for me. Are we looking for problems though? And on the whole, what we've seen tonight was a very positive performance. We've seen Celtic at particularly the first half at the swashbuckling best. We've seen a bench that looks stronger than what we've seen all season. We've seen, what was it, a triple sub at one point, and albeit Mikey Johnson has his detractors in the crowd. I felt that when Johnson coming on is still a decent option to have in the squad. Obviously, when Jota comes on, the poster boy, it's levels. There is levels to that, but we're able now to make the most of this 5-sub rule that's came back in. And I think Ange said in his post-match comments that he says, the guys who didn't play, don't worry, we're going to need every one of them between now and the end of the season. He was quite, as he tends to be, quite blunt in his assessment of that.
Yeah.
So that was quite encouraging for me as well, because I want Celtic to have a squad that they can utilise, and perhaps it not being, we're having to play him because this guy's out, or we're having to put a square peg in a round, whatever that saying is, you know what I mean? And I think it's really good that we're going, right, no Kyogo, no problem, Maeda, no Jota, no problem, James Forrest, or whatever, do you know what I mean? It may be come the end of the season, how this, or over the next few months, how this pans out. But I'm excited about the numbers. I just, I wanted to think though, Jonathan, is that depth there? To me, it looks more like it. This, to me, looks like a squad we can go, if that's what we're left with come the 1st of February, boom, let's have a right go at this league title.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. As I say, I think you've got some absolute quality on the bench for the first time in a long time. As options there. I mean, fair enough, you probably didn't need them as much tonight, but there have been countless games in that first half of the season where we're looking at our bench when we're struggling to get 3 points, and you're looking at it and you're thinking there's nothing here. We're looking at like youth players who've had to put Moffat in, I think, at times. Montgomery's had to come in at times, purely because he's just not had the options there to bring on sort of first team ready players. So it's a difficult one. But I think he's now got to a stage where there is enough quality in that team, bar an absolute disastrous injury run, that he can bring in quality for quality. He's now actually got 3 very well proven strikers. He's got Kyogo, who might be injured for another couple of weeks, but you've still got Maeda there, who's, as you said, top scorer in the J League. You've also got Giakoumakis, who was the top scorer in the Eredivisie last year. It's not bad options to have.
I liked your Dutch accent there as well, mate. That was really good.
Yeah, and
you've been working on that, mate. The Eredivisie.
but it's got him into a position now where he can afford to let guys like Lee Griffiths go completely, which obviously happened this week, which had to happen really. And you've still got, there's no real concerns there. You've got enough options up front. There's plenty of firepower going forward, so there's absolutely no reason to suggest that even if Celtic took a few injuries to their wide men or up front, they can't still bring in an absolute quality replacement. And I think this will be a season in the second half where we look at games and we shouldn't be going into many games and not scoring, which I think was our Achilles heel a bit in the first half of the season when we've dropped points.
Well, Jonathan, I think we've spoken about it before, whether we want to admit it or not. There's Hugh Studio O'Reilly said as well, thought Giakoumakis did well, which kind of leads me on to what I was going to say, because I feel like when Kyogo was out in the first half of the season, whether we want to admit it or not, there was a bit of panic, right? We were shiting ourselves a wee bit. And we know there's quality throughout the squad, but no Kyogo, and you kind of thought, oh, no. However, what we've seen so far has been, at times, other players stepping up to the plate when needed, but perhaps a lack of goal threat from one of your forward players, because Giakoumakis has been so in and out, and it's great to see him back to fitness, putting himself about well tonight as well. Top scorer in the Eredivisie last season, and hopefully he will, start picking up from where he left off last season at Venlo. Out with the relegation aspect, but I think. Then you bring in a Maeda as well. And we've got that goal threat now back in the side. And the second half tonight, I think, was one that was to be expected. But the second half of this season is one where we are going to need to take more of our chances than what we did in the first half of last season. Remember, in the first half of last season, there was games that we created over 30 opportunities. We'd maybe scored 6, but I was saying, well, what a wee bit more than that, because of the amount of chances. The actual ratio was we're only converting 1 in 5 or something like that. But anyway, I think the second half of this season, such is the tightness I think this league title race could have. I think that we might need to start looking at goals and going, right, but I think they've tooled up to deal with that. Getting Giakoumakis back, getting minutes in his legs tonight, seeing him hungry, up for it, was brilliant.
Does that maybe another problem then as well with the fact that finished obviously 2-0? We were discussing the fact it could have been more, and we obviously could argue the point it should have been more, and they take the foot off the gas potentially in the second half. Potentially when you're looking at a championship title race where, granted, 6 points in it, but you still got to play Rangers 3 times, a long way to go left in the season. I think it's going to be extremely tight between the two of them. Is goal difference, do you think, going to come into a factor? Are we going to regret games like tonight where we did get ourselves into a position of relative strength and then didn't capitalise and put the foot down?
Well, I mean, I'm very much of the opinion that the league could go to goal difference. I think it's so tight. I think it's so tight that, what we need to concern ourselves is if we get opportunities, try and take them. But first things first, get 3 points. That was the issue at the beginning of the season, was not getting 3 points. Realising the importance of getting 3 points, and then once you get comfortable leads, particularly in home matches, trying to then double down on it by getting some more goals, right? The thing is, though, right now, between now and the game on the 2nd of February, I'll take 1-0 every game. Had it been that, tonight, I'd have took 1-0 every fixture up to that match on the 2nd of February. Just keep breathing down their neck on the points, in the points column. That's the most important thing. However, all that being said, do I feel like the goal difference side of things could play a huge factor come the end of the season? You're fucking right, I do. You're absolutely right, I do. I don't feel now there's that much between the teams, and I'm not. I genuinely just think that they were, their squad, it took them 3 years to develop it. I just had 6 months. I already feel like we're getting in touch and distance. This could come back to haunt me having thoughts like this. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But the flip side is you can't also be a normal football fan and just always be balanced in your views. And what do you even like football for? Football is meant to get you carried away. It's meant to bring out emotions and waves of hysteria when your team does well and waves of panic when it does crap. That's surely, part and parcel of being a football fan. So it's easy to sit on the fence and go, well, we were good, but long way to go yet. Who wants to hear that? What I've seen tonight in that first half was a team right up for it. There was a lot more cohesion with Ange's instructions and the players delivering it on the pitch, and the 2 new boys blending into that, particularly Hatate, with absolute ease. That gives me cause for excitement. The second half, albeit whilst we may have took our foot off the gas, at no point did it look like Hibs were going to get a goal. No, which is a big difference as well. We were under no threat. Even when we're not at our best, we looked completely in control of the game. Hibs are one of the better teams in the league. So there's a lot for us to be excited about in that aspect. The goal side of it, I get the concern. Maybe tonight's not the night for it. I think all in good time. Right now, get the 3 points, and then it's tick-tock all the way up to the 2nd of February. Tick-tock.
Tick-tock, and it's, as I say, you've just got to keep really winning. It builds the momentum, and as well, if you can keep getting the 3 points on the board, well-documented Rangers don't do particularly well at Pittodrie, but that is besides the point. We can only take care of our own business up until that game, and if we get into that game and we're able to win that, then it's game on, and that's how the players need to be looking at it, and that's how I suspect Ange will be looking at it as well. And it is just a case of winning by hook or by crook up until that point. And I think there is going to be a time where somebody is going to get pasted in the second half of the season. Even if it wasn't tonight, there's no two ways about it. You get a team in there with Kyogo, Maeda, Jota, potentially Forrest playing there as well. You could end up absolutely swarming somebody. And as we said, even at the start of the season, Celtic were looking good for potentially score double digits in some games. So I think the goals will come once they're all a bit more developed. I'd probably inclined to agree with you at this point in time. It is a case of just getting the wins on the board and making sure we make a statement on the 2nd of February at Celtic Park under the lights, and we make sure we get that big win. Hopefully it's that 10-0 incoming is going to be on the 2nd of February there, but I highly doubt that, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. And I mean, from what we've seen so far, we don't want to look too far ahead, but why not? It's what we're meant to do as football fans. Again, I'll say it. I'm not here to be, a manager or a coach and go, we'll take it one game at a time. Fuck that. We of course, we've got one eye on the 2nd of February. That's just life. And I think from what we've seen tonight, I think there's a lot to be enthused about. And the Kyogo thing is interesting because I think Kyogo might have had to have been on the bench tonight pre-January. Now he can afford just not to be on the bench at all and not needing to come off the bench to get us a result because we've got the reinforcements that Ange wanted. And we've got them in, Jonathan, at the beginning of a window, not at the end of a window. So come the 2nd of February, if all things remain the same even, and it's still a 6-point gap, we've got the best opportunity for these new guys to have an impact. There's rumours are that none of them are going to be called up by Japan. That's the latest I'm hearing.
Certainly seems like Kyogo could even be ruled out for injury for the qualifiers for Japan, as what seems to be in the news and what Andrew's saying today, whether he's just keeping his cards close to his chest on that one, Mr. Postecoglou, and trying to make sure he doesn't get called up. I don't know. But there certainly was a lot of talk that Kyogo's, I think it's a hamstring injury. It seems to be a lot worse than they first thought. I think they're hoping to learn more this week on it. But that is the beauty of making the moves earlier in the window now. I think if we'd played Rangers before the winter break got brought forward and you'd went into that with no Kyogo, we'd have probably been panicking a bit. If we were to go into the game now and Kyogo doesn't make it, then we're still looking at that and feeling reasonably confident that we've got good enough backup options and strong enough strikers that we can still cause them problems and win the match regardless. So it's a much bigger place to be now, a better place for us to be in. And I think it just goes to show that Ange has been backed so far in this window. And hopefully, if he does see anybody else he's wanting to bring in, then that can be done as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old, sort of saying you want to have 2 players for every position. They don't even necessarily need to be backup, Jonathan. It should be 2 guys competing for every fucking position. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't need to be, one's backup, one's first pick. And I don't see it that way. I think it should be 2 guys for each position. And folk are saying, well, Turnbull can't get in ahead of Hatate. Well, that'll all be down to how Turnbull reacts to the arrival of Hatate and whether he can elevate his game, and the two of them push each other, and you'll see an improvement in performances again. Now, obviously, tonight is post-match push, but it meets the Monday Club. And on the Monday Club, Jonathan, we always bring up as many comments as we can. Now, I know I've been doing that throughout the show, but we've not really debated any of them. So we'll start doing that. We've got a brilliant avatar name there, Fudge Roaster. What can I say? It's easy. Well, I had to read it out. It's easier for Celtic to win away from home as teams normally try and play. Hopefully Rangers come to paradise to play football. They played quite defensively at Ibrox the last time. Now, what I would say about that is Hibs kind of played, I felt, at times tonight as if they were the home team with that. So I think at half-time Celtic had 46% possession. Someone had put that in the comments. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they were playing out for the back. And I think you're right. I think it did suit us tonight. And I think at the counter-attack, with the pace that we've got and the energy levels that we've got, we can break away and hurt teams. Will Rangers come out and play, though, in that fixture? But obviously debate that further down the line. But I certainly think Celtic away from home are in a better position if teams come out and play a wee bit, whether they're home or away, to be fair. I mean, the home record now, Jonathan's 10 games, 24 goals, 2 goals conceded, which is quite impressive, really. Albeit there's been that slip up the Livingston game that, we just don't want that to come back and haunt us, But I think on the whole, the home form's been really good. And I do get, though, the point that away from home, the way we're playing might suit us even more. In comes Justin from Australia. He's saying, not sure if you've covered this, but Big Tom was a little off tonight. That said, lots to love. He stayed on for the 90 minutes, though, which is always a good sign, Jonathan.
It's encouraging when Roger's getting 90 minutes in his pitch, because he doesn't tend to manage 90 minutes very often. He's usually blowing out his arse. But as you say, it's hard to play when you're in slippers for 90 minutes.
You just froze a wee bit there, Jonathan. In comes Bruce FM. He was on the Double Doon show last week. We've got more of that to look forward to this week as well.
Really good show, that one. I really enjoyed that with Bruce last week.
It was brilliant. I don't know what you heard about me, but I'm always chatting about the white and green. Don't give a shit about noise we can't see because I'm on the motherfucking P.M.P. I love it, mate. I love it. That was about 50 cent. Alf's in the building. Hi, Russell and Jonathan. On the train home with 3 points. 3 pints and 3 points, Alf. I like your style. Don't kid me on it any other way. Monty's finished his ironing. The crotchless panties are a nightmare. No, good work, mate. Good work, mate. Good work, mate. I think the interesting thing is, I know we've spent a wee bit of time talking about the rivals tonight, but I think you can't help it a wee bit, and maybe they'll come out tomorrow and embrace the pressure. The fact of the matter is, though, we've never seen them in 18 months, Jonathan, under the cosh at all. Does this result finally put some pressure on our title rivals that we haven't managed to do in the past 18 months? 3 points is the gap tonight as it stands. Pittodrie for them, is that slightly trickier now? Or could it be that they actually embrace this challenge? Because the one thing I always like to try and do is be balanced rather than going out your way, just take a pop shot at Rangers every 2 seconds. It's not my style. What I would say is they've dealt with being leaders with a big gap very well, and it seems to suit them. What we've seen in cups is there's been a bit more pressure put on them. We've not dealt with it so well. In the league, it's still an unknown quantity because we've not laid a glove on them for the last 18 months in terms of... And what I liked about this week was we played the fixture first, which in recent months, really, it's been them before us quite often, Jonathan.
Yeah, it has.
Right? So what we're looking forward to seeing is now they know we're breathing down the neck, only 3 points in it. They're now going to an Aberdeen side that seems to have got its mojo back, seems to be following the guidance under Steve Glass a lot better than they were. Is this now a trickier fixture for Rangers, or are we just getting, do we just need to wait and see what happens?
I think Pittodrie is always a hard place for them to go, even at the best of times. It's kind of like Tynecastle for us. We don't usually tend to enjoy going there very much. They certainly don't enjoy going up to Aberdeen, no matter what's going on in the league. It's a tough game, whatever way you look at it. In terms of the pressure side of things, I think you would almost feel a bit more confident that they would drop points. I think if Gerrard was still actually the manager, believe it or not, in my opinion. I think his teams were statistically did crumble a bit easier when they were under pressure. I think with Van Bronckhorst, you've got to look at him and think he's done a pretty good job since he's went in there. And they haven't really looked two-faced. Granted, they lost the cup semi-final, but he wasn't really in charge of that one. So it's difficult. What I would be interested with Rangers, I guess, on is if they were to drop points, how they would respond to that. Because it's been a while since they've actually been in that position. Celtic are to continue going on a roll. It makes it a lot more interesting, and then you begin to wonder, will they flap? And it does bring back questions as to whether or not they can handle the pressure, because last season they had it all their own way. Celtic were nowhere near them, and this season they've still got that 6 point cushion. But if they were to drop points at Pittodrie, and then on the 2nd of February, even if they all just keep winning their games till then, Celtic were to beat them again, then you're really looking at a test of bottle, and it really becomes a proper battle this season. But to take your point, I wouldn't be surprised if Aberdeen took something off them tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure it's even just down to us winning tonight. I think purely Pittodrie is just one of those grounds that you do not relish, particularly under the lights as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Aberdeen did take something from them there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice thought, isn't it?
It would be nice. It would be nice.
I happen to feel that this is the first opportunity we've had with the games coming up as well, like we're saying about the 2nd of February. If we can stay, even if, say, they win tomorrow, and say that carries on up to the 2nd of February, there's 6 points in it, we take care of our own business and bring it down to 3. With this sea of optimism going on at Celtic right now, which there is, and it's the momentum's, they might feel it's with them. I feel I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I feel like the momentum, maybe because I'm biased, wouldn't be the biggest crime in the world. I feel the momentum for some reason has swung to Celtic a wee bit right now. And I'm looking forward to see it. And there's Tapster one with a really nice comment. I mean, just block you, son. It's that easy. So I know you're now watching, but you're going to try and type something in and you can't get in the comments, mate. You have a nice night, though. It's great fun doing that, Jonathan. It gets good. It becomes good fun. Because, obviously they're coming in to watch. They're coming in to jump on the Boise bus with shite and put it in the comments. It's not going to wash for me, young man.
No, absolutely not.
Night.
Absolutely
ruthless,
not. Just
mate.
touching the comment that's actually up on the screen there. Oh, best pish pod.
Feed the Bear, the best pish post podcast so far. It's post match pish Feed the Bear. How many times do I need to tell you? But yeah, I think it's a very exciting time right now. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Jonathan? Are you quite happy to leave it there?
Well, just touching on the comment that was up before. Yes, I'm in my PJs tonight, YouTube. He's got me out of bed for this one. That's what I was. I got my jammy top on.
Hand-me-downs.
ready for bed. I thought I was getting on the night bus at Harry Potter. I was expecting a double bed or something to be set up for me. But no, it was just mainly to touch upon the comment that came up a few back in terms of Rangers playing a lot of long balls at Celtic Park.
Yeah.
And playing similar to that at Ibrox. I didn't really actually think Celtic played that badly at Ibrox, considering the team wasn't fully gelled as it is now. I thought they were actually a bit unfortunate to lose that game. So if Rangers want to play that game at Celtic Park, I would have no real concerns over that, because I think Celtic should have got something out of the game at Ibrox anyway.
No, I agree with that. I think on that note, it's been a long night, particularly for myself. I've been live since 7:30, basically, between the two pods. We've got a healthy 242 watching live right now, Jonathan, just so you know. A huge thanks to every single one of you who's jumped on the bus tonight. Are the good times coming back to Celtic? Will we be discussing that more this week? Yes, we will. A huge thank you to our sponsors, fanboyfootball.com, the first sponsors of the Boise Bus. I'm sure they won't be the last. Big thank you to them. We also have on Wednesday night, we're going to do some Championship Manager. Season 2's began, Jonathan. It's going pretty well already. We're looking forward to strengthening that squad with it. It's getting a wee bit more fantasy. We had bids in for Ronaldinho the other night. We also have to look forward to Double Doon Show this week. So that's going to be great fun at the weekend. But then going to do some more post-match pish, because obviously we've got the small matter of Alloa, or not so small matter of Alloa this weekend. We've got to try and get the job done there. And hope to see as many numbers as we've had tonight after a brilliant result come in for some post-match pish. You're more than welcome to after we play Alloa. And then I'm trying to think. I might do some Championship Manager on the Sunday, because I just do what I want. It's the Boise Bus, mate. We can just do what we want. There are no rules. Thanks to everyone in the comments. It has been a joy tonight to have so many people watching. Shall we do the closing credits, Jonathan, and get some Sutton action?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll bring up some comments for the closing music as well. Everyone take care. Stay safe. This has been the Boise Bus. It's been a long night, but Celtic, 3 points is the gap. Over to them.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.